If we're being honest, behind every success story, there's also maybe a few failures or lessons along the way. And that is exactly what the new documentary series on millionstories.com takes a look at. Faceplant is a new documentary series from millionstories.com, which is free to watch. You guys really need to check it out. And it's all about the journey of discovering one's dreams and the success and the failure that happens along the way in the pursuit of that dream. I had the opportunity to talk to Oscar-winning director of Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, and may have geeked out just a little bit, Peter Ramsey, about his journey in his career, about the failures he's faced, about the success, and how he's learned through all of it. I hope you guys enjoy this interview with Peter Ramsey, and make sure to head on over to millionstories.com to watch all of the episodes of Faceplant for free. Hi, Peter. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk with me. I'm a fan. Let me just say it first. I'm super excited to be chatting with you today. So my husband geeked out a little bit when I told him to. I've really enjoyed, watching the content from Million Stories and now specifically Faceplant. And, I was curious, how did you get involved with this and what made you want to tell your story as part of this new documentary series?
A good friend of mine who I worked with at DreamWorks Animation at the time of Rise of the Guardians was part of the Faceplant team. So he asked me if I'd be interested in kind of like telling some of that story. And I was like, oh, wow. Yeah, that sounds like it's made for your show. So yeah, and it was kind of at a nice time for me to be able to kind of like, put things in perspective and take stock of it myself. So it just felt like a good thing to share with other people.
Yeah, and I'd say as an audience member, there's a lot of things that go on behind the scenes of the movie making business that I never consider or think about, right? And one of the things that made me think about is, what is the definition of success a lot of times? Right. With Rise of the Guardians, it was a movie I really enjoyed. I was curious, when you're looking at a movie, are you, from an audience member, we're thinking about, do we like the story? Do we like the characters? Mm-hmm. And there's also the other side of it, which is box numbers. Like for you, how do you kind of interpret the success of a project you're working on?
Oh, I mean, it's for me, it's just, it's all quality. Does the story work? Am I engaged? Did I achieve what I was hoping to, Mm-hmm. And there's like, take Guardians. I would go like, yeah, it's good. There's a bunch of things. Oh, that could have been better. Oh God, that could have been better. Oh my God, if only I could go back and do that over again. So there's definitely, could that movie be better? Oh yeah, absolutely. But it's also like, but it should have done better than it ended up doing in theaters. And I think that's kind of proven out by how well it did in home video after,
Right.
It's like, yeah, so there was something weird about the release of the movie. But then I do have to turn around and say, well, if you had made it 10% better, or 15%, whatever. So who knows? I think for me, the point is always that there's always a bunch of factors that contribute to the success or failure of everything. Mm-hmm. And that there's only so many of those factors that you can control or that you even have anything to do with.
Absolutely. Hindsight's always 20/20. There's always things you realize, oh, this happened because of that. I totally can see that in my own life for sure. Mm-hmm. Coming off of that project, it seemed like you took on some writing things, some live action type of things. Mm-hmm. Did you find that it was easier for you to kind of work on a project that was different from animation, things, to take a break and kind of get your head back, if you will?
Probably a little, yeah. I mean, there were a lot of ideas that I'd had before I ever started Guardians mm-hmm. that I had to put to the side because, there was just no time to even think about them when I was working on that movie. And that was 3 years. Mm-hmm. So one of the things I did, to kind of decompress was like go, open the drawer and like see what was there collecting dust. And I was, oh yeah, I remember that. Oh yeah, I remember that. And that's for me, it was a great way to sort of like push that other stuff to the side and get lost in something new and get back to get my own ideas. It was kind of reconnecting with stuff that was important to me. Mm-hmm. And so yeah, it helped me a lot, and it also helped me realize, oh yeah, wait a minute, look at that idea. That's pretty good. You're not such an idiot. Look at you. Come on, you
I,
know.
I mean, then Spider-Man happened, right? And
Right.
watching your story, I found it so interesting that you had a different project you were working on at the time when you
Hmm.
started to hear the whispers of Spider-Verse.
Yeah.
When you mentioned it, do you feel like just throwing your name out there, expressing interest was kind of what eventually got you the opportunity to work on the project? Or do you feel like, all would have happened eventually?
Well, that was the weird thing because my name was already out there.
Mhm.
It was I was one of the people they were thinking of for it, and really, I think the only reason that I wasn't in there was because I already had another gig. I had just signed on this other movie, and yeah, I heard about it. I was kind of like, oh man, timing.
Agreed.
But I ended up there anyway, which is it's just a one of those crazy coincidences.
Right. Yeah. Well, that movie obviously was a smash hit. Can't wait to see, those characters more. I mean, moving forward from, a faceplant, if you will, per the name
Mm-hmm.
of the series, you have
Mm-hmm.
any advice for other people who, have, played a bad hand, if you will, or just it didn't play out as they want? How would
Right.
you advise, you kind of move forward?
Yeah. It's you've gotta remember that there's more. I think I said it in the show. I mean, the big lesson I kept coming away with is you're more than just one thing. Whether it's a success or a failure, there's more to you than that. And you have to keep that in perspective. You're a whole person. You're not just any one thing that you do.
Mhm.
Um, and that, if you gave it your best shot, if you did your best, then you kind of have to walk away with that and kind of like not beat yourself up. You have to remember, if this movie had made $1 billion, just say, would I be able to would I be able to stand there and say that $1 billion, all of that was just because of me? I was the only one who had anything to do with it. No, nobody can say that. Nobody could ever say that. It's the same thing if something doesn't work out. The same reasons or the same reasons you can give for something being an outrageous success, they work the other way. So it's timing. Oh, this movie, it caught the public imagination at just the right time. It can happen the other way for something that is not a success. So I think it's those things. You have to you kind of have to get over yourself in a way to sort of like realize your place in how things really work or don't work to an extent.
Yeah. I feel like probably in its own way too, the other challenge is moving forward from a huge success.
Mm.
You have that kind of pressure or just expectation that like this was such a huge success. Now what? How do you even move forward from something like Spider-Verse?
Yeah. That one's probably a little little easier.
Here.
Feels a little better, because I think part of it with a success is like, even if the next thing you do doesn't, which nothing that I've been working on has come out yet, but if it's just like so, I think people will go, well, give him another shot. We know he can do it, you know. And I think you probably only have so many times you can do that before people go, wait a minute, maybe that was the mistake. But yeah, it's interesting. People with that movie in particular, people just have such warm feelings toward it, because of what the movie is, that they're they're like encouraging and like they want things to go well now. So it's that does carry its own kind of responsibility. But I think, coming through, two movies like this now, I sort of I have a good sense of the things that are important to me about a project and the things that I think a story to communicate, or the way that I want to, communicate with an audience. So hopefully on that score, I'll be okay for the next time too.
I think you will be. Yes. You mentioned kind of future projects. Anything you can kind of give us a hint at what you're working on?
I think the only thing it's weird because there's a bunch of things. There's several animated features I'm attached to as an executive producer that I've come on. I'm just part of the creative team and like consulting and working with the directors and writers and things like that. And that's really fun. And there's some really exciting projects I wish I could talk about at a couple of different studios. There's everybody asks about Spider-Verse 2, and there is a Spider-Verse 2, and I'm not directing on it, but I kind of hide in the shadows at the studio sometimes to leave little notes, little post-it notes that nobody knows who put them there. So but I talk to those guys all the time though, so it's one big happy family.
And as a kid, you liked comics, right? So like, working on Spider-Man was a dream. Is that like an area you hope to maybe work on future projects in that, comic universe?
It would depend. Honestly, it would depend on the character and the story. For me, I love comics, but I guess I don't like. Yeah, I love movies too. I guess my first and foremost thing isn't to go, oh, I would love to see this comic be a movie. It's like, yeah, that'd be great, but if if we could dig into the story in a particular way, or if we could, what's the interesting, what's the exciting way to do it, and you can, obviously you can say that about any kind of story. It doesn't have to be a comic book story. So it really would depend on the specific circumstance. With Spider-Verse, the fact that it was Miles Morales and the fact that, Phil Lord and Chris Miller wanted to tell that story in a really different, unique way was really exciting and felt like something new to be a part of. So that kind of worked for. But, if somebody were to say, oh, now you can do, X-Men, whatever man, and just do it like Spider-Verse, just give it the Spider-Verse treatment, then it's kind of like, been there, done that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I will leave you on this final question. If you could give 10-year-old Peter Ramsey some advice, or a kid who's watching Spider-Verse, Miles Morales, what would you give him advice as he's, moving on in life?
Yeah, I'd say, all the things you're doing now that you love and enjoy doing, keep doing it. Don't give up. Don't stop. If you really love it, don't stop, because you're good enough. You're good. You've got it. You got to believe in yourself. You really do need to believe in yourself. It sounds corny, but just try it and don't give up. Really, that's the biggest and best advice, because in my life, I found that when I just applied myself and really, really put my passion and put my attention into things, doors would open up. It didn't always happen when I wanted, but at some point, boop, it would happen. And then, you just have to be ready to walk through when the time comes.
Well, thank you so much for taking the time. It was great talking to you, learning about your experience. I can't wait to check out more Faceplant, and I can't wait to learn about those future projects that you have in the works.
Me neither.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.